All right, good evening, everyone. We are here Monday, March 20th in the Great Hall, and I will ask the city clerk to take the roll.
Counselor Kane. Present. Counselor Kroll. Present. Counselor DeBona. Present. Counselor Finn. Present. Counselor Harris. Present. Counselor LaForest. Present. Counselor Liang. Present. Counselor Palmucci. President Hughes.
Here.
8 members, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. If everyone will please rise and join me in a moment of silence for all those serving in our military here and abroad, and think of their families. And if you'll face the flag, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and Madam Clerk, if you could read the open meeting law.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And I see Councilor Palmucci has joined us. You can
Thank you.
mark him present. All right, very well. Madam Clerk, if you would begin with our first agenda item when you get a moment.
Number 1 on the agenda, 2017-038, an appropriation for $147,000 for Adam Shore House Neck Seawall Repair Grant. Upon the recommendation of the Director of Municipal Finance and with the approval of His Honor the Mayor, an appropriation in the sum of $147,000 to the Department of Public Works, Adam Shore House Neck Seawall Repair Grant Fund, number 3444, same to be transferred from Hotel Motel Fund 4512, Open Space.
Great, and I see Deirdre Hall is here from the Department of Public Works to speak to this. Hello.
So this is an appropriation order for $147,000 for the match requirement for the EEA grant from the state. The state is giving us $441,000 for the permitting and design of 6,000 linear feet of seawall along Adam Shore and House Neck. The seawall that we're going to be planning and designing was part of a 2011 seawall study. Those seawalls were ranked all C's and D's in that study. There's been some review of the seawalls. They have there are different types, precast, they have revetments, and there was some substantial damage in the, I believe they said in the stone revetments, there are voids in between the rocks, which are causing issues with wave action and undermining the stability of the revetment. There's cracking in the precast concrete block seawalls. The cast in place seawall has washout behind the seawall, so they're losing their stability from behind the seawall. Additionally, some of the granite block wall units are starting to fail because they're in unsuitable soils. This seawall's pretty important in the sense that it protects not only the land, but also a lot of critical infrastructure. We have sewer, water, and gas utilities immediately adjacent to the seawall. Also, that's an emergency artery, as you know, for that part of town. The planning has some environmental issues, some tidal concerns, flood elevation issues, and also we're taking into account potential sea level rise in design. So this is a 3-to-1 grant, so we're just looking for that additional city match so we can access those additional state funds.
Great, thank you. Councilor LaForest.
Thank you, Madam President. The City of Quincy will be working with Ty and Bond on this. They're the same firm that did our Edgewater Drive seawall project. Really great for us to work with. The seawall permitting process under the past administration really took a very, very long time. And so as we're looking at this, we're looking at a 20-month project schedule just for design, engineering, and permitting. This seawall section, so it's 6,000 linear feet, it picks up all of the highest risk repetitive loss areas that we've had, particularly the northeast facing storm. So the section that is going to get addressed is Marymount from the intersection of Shore Ave, Narragansett, Chickatobit, in Norton. That area has had a lot of loss. Even just this last storm, we were pumping water out over the seawall. It follow the shoreline, Norton Road, picks up Shelton Road, which has had some pretty significant damage, goes down and it picks up Post Island, and it also picks up the Willows. So, you're looking at the area that have had the most repetitive loss, a significant section of seawall. And the first part of the piece of the puzzle is to get this engineering permitting design done. And we will be having a neighborhood meeting as soon as we get that coordinated with Ty and Bond, I would say probably a month or so from now, to let people understand what the impact is going to be and the scope of the work. And I would like to give a shout out to my predecessor, Leo Kelly, that the Hotel Motel Tax Fund does allow for seawall repairs, and that's where we will be utilizing the funds for the match. So I think it's funds very well spent in protecting thousands of homes in our coastal neighborhoods. So I would like to move the appropriation and ask my colleagues to join me in supporting this. Is a very important project for the residents of Ward 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Yes, Counselor Finn.
Thank you, and Ms. Hall. One of the things I just wanted to be clear, but the actual grant was for $441,000, correct, that we've received from the Massachusetts Executive Office of...
Correct.
Right, okay, great. And again, this is a match that's consistent with which is part of the grant that I presume we applied for or entered into?
Yes.
Right, okay, fantastic. So essentially, this is leveraging close to $500,000 in resources. The other thing that's absolutely amazing to me is the number of permits required, that one of the end products of this will be that you'll have essentially permits in place to actually proceed afterwards, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, lots of permits. Spelled out with an E&F through MIPA. We're going to need an order of conditions from the Concom. Army Corps permitting, 401 water certification, filed under the NIPD's construction general permit, Chapter 91 license, and potentially CZM federal consistency review.
Great. Again, I'm going to join Councilor LaForest in supporting this. I think it's, again, oftentimes, given the level of age and wear and disrepair of different city assets and the like, that some people will want to shake their heads and say there's nothing we can do. But I think actually the pursuit of this is indicative of really, there is something you can do, and you've started that. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Just so the body is aware, I had a conversation with the auditor, and I'll let her kind of chime in on it, but just to give you a flavor as to what the, what the cash flow looks like in the hotel motel tax, because I know we'll be having some subsequent conversations regarding that as well, so I just recognize the auditor.
Through you to the council.
Looking for you.
Currently,
Hold up. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I'm getting old.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Currently, there's a balance in the hotel motel on the open space portion of $1,960,000, and that is after we have taken out the debt service payment of roughly $666,000. We will be expecting 2 more payments in that will go towards this open space portion, and that will be for the next 2 quarters. So we're probably expecting maybe another between $500,000 and $600,000 into this account. And currently, right now, we just pay the debt service. There was a park bond quite some time ago, and we're currently paying that bond down.
Thank you, Madam Auditor. Yes.
Try that again, Madam Auditor. You said that there's an expected $500,000 to $600,000 coming into the account? So from the hotel motel tax?
Correct. We receive quarterly payments. We've received the first 2 quarters, so we have another payment that we will be getting at the end of this quarter, which is the end of March. That will get posted, I would assume, in the treasurer's office, once it's received from the state. And then we will get another quarterly payment the end of June.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Great, thank you. So is there a motion? Okay, motion by Counselor LaForest, seconded by Counselor Finn. Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Counselor King. Yes. Counselor Crowe. Yes. Counselor DeBona.
Yes.
Counselor Finn. Yes. Counselor Harris. Yes. Counselor LaForest. Yes. Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Palmucci. Yes. President Hughes.
Yes.
9 members.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, number 2, 2016-111, update, order for a study and hearings related to water and sewer infrastructure by Quincy City Council Public Works Committee. And Commissioner Raimondi is here to speak.
Great, thank you. Yes, Counselor Finn.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, when I introduced this a while back now, almost a year ago, that part of it had grown. In fact, if he's watching TV, I apologize because I probably forgot to invite him here, but it really grew out of a conversation with a constituent, Peter Forbes, who was talking to me about the role asset management plays in particularly developing budgets and projecting out costs over time and looking at what return on investment might be in relation to, again, addressing what obviously is aging infrastructure. And so when I submitted this particular order to basically investigate, to conduct hearings or whatever in relation to it, and as I began to speak with the commissioner and with other people within the city, again, including, I know Mr. Shea is here this evening, but one of the things that I discovered as it related to both water and sewer and drain was that I was kind of impressed with what I found as I began to look closer at this in terms of a kind of integrated approach that they were taking in terms of again, approaching these very issues in terms of what is the status of our assets within water and sewer and drain, and again, how is the best way of addressing this? Now, clearly, we live in an age of a time of scarcity, quite honestly, that we have, as has been mentioned here before, is the Clean Water Act, which has now placed tremendous requirements on us that we're supposed to meet at the same time when they're actually declining funding in relation to this. And so the idea of being on top of this is more important than ever. And actually, that's happening in both sewer and drain and in the water department. And again, we don't want to be here all night in relation to these things. So again, I think we will have the department back at some other point in time to focus on the water. But this evening, just looking at, in terms of the sewer and drain system, they've kind of broken out of a siloed approach in terms of how to manage these specific assets, and are looking at these in such a way that basically fixes one problem, more or less, or is looking at one problem, and how do we get the maximum return out of that specifically by conducting things in an integrated fashion. And so with that, again, through you, Madam President, I'm happy that the commissioner's here, and I know Ms. Hall has some things to say in regards to this as well. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam President, members of the council, thank you
Mr. Commissioner.
for the invitation to be here this evening. My role will be brief. I won't be making any substantive presentation. Ms. Hall will be doing that. But it does provide me an opportunity to talk to you a bit about this outstanding public servant who is Quincy born and raised, grew up in House Neck, somehow went to North Quincy High School, and became an attorney. As you know, with continuing challenges from regulatory authorities, as Councilor Finn mentioned, our first presenter, Deirdre Hall, with the support of Mayor Koch in this council, transitioned from the Solicitor's Office to the Department of Public Works Compliance Manager. With the absence of a city engineer, and at my direction, she has been assigned additional responsibilities, including management of certain sewer and drain operations. As impressive as the quantity, variety, and quality of her work is and has been, what is most exceptional is the ease and enthusiasm which she accepts these expanded responsibilities. She understands that every aspect of public service is vital, and because of this, she undertakes every administrative and operational assignment with professionalism and energy. Today, she is as comfortable and proficient in dungarees and work clothes, flipping a manhole, looking at a section of pipe irregularities, and sampling outfalls, as she was in a suit representing the city at a civil service hearing. On top of her daily workload, and on her own initiative, since July, when she has assumed this responsibility, she has, this is the past 9 months, been certified as a professional municipal stormwater manager. We're a nation of how many millions of people? Only 193 people in the whole country have that certification. Only 2 in Massachusetts, and we have one right here in this chamber. Obtained pipe assessment certification, manhole assessment certification, lateral assessment certification, National Association of Sanitary Sewer Companies certification. She has obtained a graduate certificate in environmental policy in December 2016, completed 2 classes in graduate GIS certificate program, presented on SSCS IDDE integration at the New England Water Environmental Association meeting in January 2017, submitted an article for publication in the New Collection Journal on that same topic, became a member of the State Stormwater Collaborative and chair of the Advocacy Subcommittee, become a member of the Neponset River Stormwater Collaborative, which consists of municipalities within the Neponset River watershed, been invited to speak, present at the spring meeting of the New England Chapter of American Public Works Association on catch basin cleaning and MS4 compliance. She's been instrumental in obtaining a $60,000 CZM resiliency grant, a $40,000 DEP infrastructure grant, and a $55,000 CPC Butler Pond grant. And on top of that, this month, she's scheduled training on erosion and sediment control. She has earned the respect of her peers. Clearly, she is most qualified to provide you with the information that you are seeking tonight. We look forward to the presentation. We look forward to another meeting, Chairman Finn and members of the council, to bring in a water expert as well. Paul Delabarber is here just to see how the council will function this evening and what any other information you may have. We are in the process of finalizing a water model, a hydraulic model of our entire system, and I think that document alone, once we share it with the mayor's office, we're in the final preparation of that, will answer perhaps most of the questions that you folks may have with respect to the water side. But it's a pleasure to bring to you again, Deirdre. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Yes.
No, I
Councilman
just,
Finn.
that's quite an introduction, Deirdre, so don't disappoint us here.
Thank you, I think. All right, let me just get the PowerPoint going. So good evening again, and I'm going to present this evening on our sewer and drain infrastructure updates. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the gray infrastructure that we've been repairing, assessing, and then as well as some of the operational practices that the department's been doing in order to be effective and efficient with ratepayer dollars to try to solve 2 problems with 1 procedure, I guess. There's a couple of handouts that I have, just because the slides really, the images didn't come out very well in the slides because they're big images, and they're not clear, so I'd like to give those out before I start, if that's okay. Mhm. All right. So the update's going to consist of a little talk about sanitary sewer infrastructure. We're going to start with the big picture, look at it nationally, just briefly, and then we're going to talk Quincy specific. We're going to look at stormwater infrastructure nationally, and then Quincy specific. I'll touch upon the GIS mapping updates that we've done sort of throughout as we go. And I'm going to talk about some of the outreach that we're doing in the community about our clean water programs. We really feel in the department that it's important for our residents to know what we're doing with their money and what they're buying with their dollars. So to start, the American Society for Civil Engineers gives America's wastewater and stormwater infrastructure nationwide a D. $298 billion is what is estimated to be invested over the next 20 years to keep the industry going for wastewater and stormwater systems. That number is mostly attributed to sewer pipes. The Clean Water Act initially did a lot with financial investment in our sanitary sewage treatment plants. So a lot of those have been upgraded, but it's kind of to the neglect of our conveyance system. So the majority of that money is necessary in our conveyance system. We have 800,000 miles of public sewer pipe in the U.S., and just the construction without the engineering, it's about $100 to $200 per linear foot to rehab the sewer pipes. And Quincy is no exception. So the average age for sewers in the United States is 47 years, and the average age for sewers in Quincy is 92 years old. And 80% of our sewers are greater than 80 years old, and we have 176 miles of sewer pipe that is greater than 80 years old. These pipes are not meant to last forever. They do have a lifespan, and they're approaching the end of their age. This is a breakdown of Quincy's sanitary sewer system by age. I broke it into the decade that the pipe was placed into the ground. So if we can, I need new glasses. Okay, so all the way to the right would be an unknown date, and then you have the 1889, I think it says, and going to the left is the current investment. So as you can see, in the past few decades, there's been very, very little investment in our underground infrastructure versus what it was, back in the turn of the mid 1900s. Yep. Yeah. So one of the exercises I did when preparing for this presentation was to actually figure out not only is our infrastructure old, but our infrastructure is also very vulnerable because we have so much coastline. So I created a 200-foot buffer around all of our coastline on GIS and calculated that we have 66,851 feet of sewer pipe located within 200 feet of the coast. That's 12.6 miles of pipe. That's just by location alone is exposed to tidal influence. And we have 484 sewer manholes also within that same buffer. So when we're that close to the coast, we're subject to tidal infiltration, and also the salt water can cause damage to our infrastructure, eat away at mortar and things like that in the manholes. So in addition to our sewer infrastructure being old, we also have other old infrastructure. So now we're talking a little bit about stormwater. We have 52 tide gates. Some of them are double tide gates. That's why that number doesn't add to 52. But 40 are in very good to fair condition, and 7 are in very poor to poor condition. The estimated cost to repair these is about $218,000 if we were to repair them all now. Again, we're vulnerable. These are our outfalls. I'm sure anyone who has coastal area in their district will understand that outfalls are essential to getting flood water off our people's streets. 18 outfalls right now are in poor to very poor condition. This is Sexton Circle. 115 outfalls are in fair condition to very good condition. We have 308. Some we can't even find. They're buried. They're broken. You can't find them. But of the ones that we can locate, we have 18 that are in very poor condition. Some of the outfalls are very large, and the cost to rehab them, I think the one on Chickatawbit was over $1 million, if I think. But some are less. Some are 8-inch pipe, a little bit less. So right now, we're going through an assessment of which outfalls we think we really need to hit first for rehab. We'll talk a little bit about our drain infrastructure, 9,329 catch basins, 305 drain manholes, and 150 miles of drain pipe. And in let's just say 17, sorry. In fiscal year 17, we cleaned 3,120 catch basins, 1,180 tons of debris, identified 272 catch basins in need of repair and repaired 75, because that's the maximum our budget allowed us to do, and disposed of 7,011 tons of debris from street sweeping. Just these budget items are relatively new. With the help of the mayor and the help of this council, we've been able to fund this additional work. It's essential to our communities, specifically catch basins and street sweeping, because it helps, again, get the floodwaters off our streets when it rains more efficiently. Okay, so now we're going to get into MS4. So what are some of the things we're required to do for stormwater and, I guess, in some ways, sewer compliance? These are the 6 minimum control measures associated with the NIPDES permit. We're going to focus on number 3 tonight. Number 3 deals with kind of where the sewer and the drain cross each other, where there's an overlap, where there's a regulatory overlap, and sometimes an actual physical overlap. But we're going to talk about that specifically, because that's something that our department has really been focused on, is being more innovative in how we can leverage funds from one to solve another problem on the other side. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So there it is, illicit discharge. Okay, so MS4 investigations require us to map our entire stormwater system. So right now, we have a good majority of our stormwater system mapped. It's a good time to pass out my maps. Again, I like to bring technology. So I'll pass out the iPads, and you can take a peek at them. I think I'm in the sewer layer, but you can click on an asset, a pipe, or a manhole. Information on that will come up on the side. We have all of our plans scanned. If you click on, actually I'm in the sewer, so you can't, but if you were in the drain layer, you could click on the outfall, and you could see the photograph of the outfalls that we take. On the other iPad, what I have here is, in addition to necessarily indicate cross-contamination from the sanitary sewer. So we'll do that in dry weather. We also have to do it in wet weather. And then if we can't find the outfall, we're allowed to grab that sample from the upstream manhole. We are doing manhole inspections, so every time we're in the catchment and going into a manhole, we're assessing that manhole for its condition. If you look at the packet I handed out of 4 pages, those are the data points we assess on each manhole when we pull a That's all the data, there's 4 pages of 11 by 17 paper, and that's every piece of data that we assess from each manhole that we open in the drain system. We also do CCTV inspections, and from those CCTV reports, we can create tables as well that assign scores to the pipes so that we can prioritize our repairs. Those with the most defects would get the highest priority score, and that way we can make sure that we're targeting our rehab effectively. Dye testing needs to be done in order to confirm any sort of cross connections or indirect connections from sanitary sewer into the drain, and building inspections. So we go in, sometimes we would go into a home or into a building to confirm an illicit connection. So as you can see by the data that I gave you, the 4 pages, there's a lot of data management associated with this exercise. We're getting 30 points on each manhole at times, probably more on some. So it's important for us to have a good system, and so that we don't lose that data, because that's time and energy and investment by the city, by the ratepayers, by the taxpayers. We want to make sure that we retain that data, so it helps us with future planning. And then in addition to all of this, we also have to test every receiving water for specific pollutants that are identified by DEP. And every receiving water has different pollutants. So for instance, right now, we're about to go into Furnace Brook. Furnace Brook is impaired for dissolved oxygen, so I have to test for dissolved oxygen, I have to test for total phosphorus, and I need to test for BOD. Okay? Like I said, there's different tests for different bodies of water. So you saw your data examples. This is where I couldn't really put the slide up because there's a lot of data there. In addition to the IDDE portion, we have this other requirement on the state side, which is we got to deal with I&I. The Mass DEP regulations, 312 CMR 12.04, require us to come up with an I&I plan. How are we going to reduce I&I? And the plan requires us to come up with a phased evaluation of our sewer system. We need to conduct structural investigations on our pipes and figure out where our deficiencies are so that we can reduce the amount of sanitary sewer overflows we have and reduce the amount of II in the system. Based upon those findings in the investigation, that's how we prioritize which pipes we're going to go to first and rehab first. The plan also has to include a budget. We have to identify sources of potential funds to do this type of work, and the plan has to be submitted to Mass DEP this December for approval. So we have these 2 competing things. We have IDDE on one side, which is the federal requirement, and then we have the state requirement for I&I. As part of the sanitary sewer evaluation survey associated with the II, these are the different techniques we use to assess our sewer system. I'm not going to get into everyone specifically, but it obviously requires, again, opening manholes, putting the camera in the pipe, looking at dye, it's all starting to look familiar, doing flow isolation, doing some smoke testing, and lots of data management. Because just like every drain manhole we open, we have those data points. We have the same data points in sewer manholes. So for 3,000 drain manholes and probably 3,000 sewer manholes, we have all those data points that we're collecting. So what we've decided to do is, as you can see, a lot of the things that we're doing in both the sewer and the drain are kind of similar. So what the department started to do is integrate our sanitary sewer evaluation and our illicit discharge detection and elimination program. And why should we do this? So these are all the things associated with the Clean Water Act. So the Clean Water Act, like I said, deals with wastewater treatment, it deals with collection systems, it deals with separate storm sewers, combined sewers, impaired waters. We talked about specific pollutants for different water bodies. It deals with just all sorts of requirements. And to add something else on top of it just makes it more confusing. So if we look at these together, can we, make it more holistic, more comprehensive? So these are the comparison, like we talked about, of the investigation procedures associated with each one of these. So IDDE involves base flow monitoring, grabbing manhole samples, looking at the structural conditions of both the drain and the sewer, inspecting for illicit connections, and in repairing any illicit connections. Where the sanitary sewer evaluation survey, again, requires flow monitoring, manhole inspections, structural and O&M condition. These are starting to look almost identical. visual inspection for inflow and infiltration, and pipe and manhole repairs. So as you start to look at what investigation procedures are used in each one of these, there's clearly overlap. And then how we prioritize. So we prioritize the area, the infrastructure areas we're going to look at in IDDE based upon our outfall sampling results, based upon the sewer system age and materials, based upon SSO reports, stormwater and drain crossings, as well as how close you are to a bathing beach, if a particular outfall discharges to a bathing beach. And under the sanitary sewer evaluation survey, we're looking at consequence of failure analysis, again, the sewer system age, SSO reports, hydraulic limitations, and proximity to beaches. So all this is starting to look similar. So if you integrate these together, you can understand more how your system flows, you can do more analytical sampling, and then your inspections and your pipe inspections can hit both requirements. And you can make more targeted repairs so that you're correcting both economic problem, I&I, a structural problem, as well as an environmental problem, which is the IDDE on the other side. So this is what we did when I started. So this was our planning. We went through a planning procedure where we looked at some of the parameters associated with potential illicit discharges. So we looked at history of sanitary sewer overflows, sewer and drain crossings, age of pipe, and things of that nature that would lead you to potentially have an illicit discharge between the sewer and the drain. And from that exercise, the area in orange became our highest potential priority for potential illicit discharges. As you can see, it's most of North Quincy, Montclair area. And so what we did is when we decided to start planning what I'm calling, I don't know what the real name is, but I'm calling it Phase 3 Sanitary Sewer Evaluation Survey, which are those green lines and the blue lines up on this map, we overlapped them on purpose in some of the same areas where we knew we were going to have illicit discharge issues, because to confirm an illicit discharge, you have to look in the sewer pipe. So why look in the sewer pipe twice? CCTV is very, very expensive. You have to first pay to clean the pipe, and then you need to pay to camera the pipe. So it makes more sense to just put the camera in the pipe once. So that's what we're doing. In addition, we're looking at a rate-based system and a consequence of failure-based system, and we're also investigating pipes near the coast. A lot of environmental consequences if those were to fail, as well as a lot of potential savings there because we're getting infiltration from tidal water. All right, so here's planning in action. This is an action shot. All right, so this is a catchment out by Airport Road. When we did some dry weather sampling, you can see it's blue circled with the red. When we did dry weather sampling here, we got some pretty high hits for pollutants at that outfall. The light blue pipes are the sanitary sewer, and the dark blue pipes are the drains. So as you can see, there's some crossings. You can see where the sewer and the drain are crossing. And actually, you can't tell from this map, but the elevation of the sewer pipe is higher than the elevation of the drain. And that's problematic because when it leaks, it goes with gravity, so it's coming down, not going up. So when the drain's underneath the sewer, you have a much bigger problem. So you have a lot of crossings here. So because we got the hit at the outfall in dry weather, you shouldn't have any flow in dry weather, but we did, and it was, not pretty. So we decided to highlight this area for our sanitary sewer evaluation survey. And this is what we found, hopefully. So that's the sewer pipe. Some pictures of what the sewer pipe looks like in those areas. All right, so we have some major problems with our sewer pipe here, and it's leaking into our drain system, which is why we had the hit at the outfall. So what this dry weather sampling, eventually wet, we've only done dry weather sampling so far, we're moving on to wet in the spring. But what we're finding with the dry weather sampling is it's giving us a new way to prioritize our sewer repairs, okay? Because sewers need to be repaired for, economic reasons, to reduce the amount of I&I that we're sending to Deer Island and paying to be treated. They need to be done, to keep your sewers from failing, but they also need to be done for environmental reasons. So when we're using all these different variables to assess where's the best place to put our money, we're getting the best bang for our buck. So I don't want to talk about this in a negative light. The C Street project was planned in 2013, 2014, before we were doing dry weather sampling. It was a very successful I&I removal project, but I just want to sort of show you what can happen when you don't factor in that IDDE part of variable when you're talking about I&I. So we spent, in this council, voted to borrow that, with support of the mayor, the money from the MWRA for this I&I rehab project. This is a 20-inch pipe along C Street, and I think we talked about C Street with the seawall earlier. So this is a piece of critical infrastructure that serves House Neck. It's very tidally influenced. It's underwater I'm guessing probably half the day. So we cleaned it and we lined it, and all those purple manholes, we rehabbed those manholes as well. So we effectively removed II from this project, from this pipe. And that pipelining was done in, I'm going to say it was done in maybe August. We hadn't done the laterals yet, but the main pipe was done in August. We still had to do the laterals. So in that same summer, we went through the exercise of delineating our catchments. And what that means is we looked at the elevation of the ground, as well as the elevation of the land, as well as the flow direction of our drain pipes, to figure out which land areas discharge to which outfalls. And this is our catchment delineation for this area. So as you can see, the catchments are very, very small. Some of them only have that small 20-inch pipe segment and a few other branch lines that come off. But that is the catchment delineation for C Street, and those are all of them drain to a different outfall. And then we did our dry weather sampling in the fall. So this was after we lined C Street. And what we're testing for are parameters for sanitary sewage. We're testing for surfactants, which is soap. So if someone's, dishwasher or a washing machine is discharging and the sewage is leaking into the drain, we'll get hit for surfactants there. We're testing for ammonia, which is human waste, as well as chlorine, which is the evidence of drinking water, right, in the system. So that's what we're testing the outfalls for. And as you can see, we got pollutant hits at those catchments. That's after we lined the pipe. So when we chose to line this pipe, we lined it because it was economically beneficial. The amount of I&I we removed had a direct cost-benefit analysis to save money in the long run rather than treat the II. The smaller lateral pipes off that pipe maybe didn't have that same cost-benefit analysis. You have a smaller pipe, less I&I, the cost to line it. Maybe the cost-benefit analysis wasn't there, but unfortunately, because we weren't factoring in this third variable of, environmental harm, now we need to go back and look at those pipes, why is that important? Well, these people were put out an entire summer with a bypass. They have coastal property, and they had to deal with a bypass all summer, and it's hard to come back to them and say, I know we did it, I know we were here, but we need to check this now too. So by doing this integrated planning now, we're hoping to avoid this. And I think so far we're doing pretty well. So upcoming sewer rehab projects. We recently did, or we're in the middle actually, of doing manhole rehab for 19 manholes along Furnace Brook Parkway. Again, it's in the easement off Furnace Brook Parkway, so it's not actually on the street, it's in the easement. So it's a very tidally influenced, so it helps with I&I. We did 2 pipe excavation repairs along Furnace Brook Parkway. And these funds, it's important to know, these funds were paid entirely, well, almost entirely, through mitigation funds from the development that John Flatley put in. So this was a condition to their development. They had to remove a certain amount of I&I, and they funded this project. We're going to have the replacement of 9 service connections on John Street. The pipe actually isn't in too bad a shape, but it's settled, and now the service connections are causing some infiltration there. And we're going to do 2-point repairs and CIPP lining along Bayside Road. Other additional sewer rehab projects, these pipes here are going to be, highlighted here, are going to be lined, and a couple of point repairs, some manhole lining. This is part of our Wollaston Beach project, which has been ongoing for many years. So this is going to be done, the point repairs and the manholes are being done now in the spring, and the lining work will be done in the fall. And alongside that work, we're going to be doing additional IDDE. So we're going to be doing manhole sample grabs in this area. This area, if you see this green area, this is catchment 00871. That's one catchment. All that area drains to one outfall. And if you, I don't know if you can tell, but it goes all the way up on the top of Forbes Hill and comes down, goes under the train station and into Sachem Brook. So that's a huge area for potential pollutants to get into the drain system. So we're going to be doing some grab samples in the drain manholes. And then this is the corresponding sanitary sewer evaluation survey we're going to be doing in the area as well. And that's going to include smoke testing and dye testing and CCTV work. So. And the other big thing that we've been doing, like I said, is trying to get the word out of why utility infrastructure investment is important. You know, our residents are the ones that are footing this bill, and I think it's really important for us to reach out to them and tell them what we're doing and why we're doing it, and sort of make it, in a sense, a commodity, make them feel like they're getting something valuable for what they're paying. So what we highlight when we do, we've done multiple community meetings, we do them before every project, and we talk about why investment is essential for the economy, fixing things before they break, it's less disruptive, that, you know, by planning in advance, we can save a lot of aggravation and a lot of cost. We also talk about how this investment increases our quality of life. We focus on, you know, the coastal tourism issues. We focus on the amount of money generated in recreation from our beaches, as well as money generated through commercial fishing. So by investing in our upgrades to our sewer system and our drain system, we're essentially making our waters cleaner, which is really helping our quality of life. And that it's critical to our public health. Obviously, there's, you know, pathogens and waterborne illnesses when we have that cross-contamination. It's a public safety issue because as infrastructure fails, you can have street collapses. And also, we're dealing with the more intense rainfalls, and we don't want to, by making sure that we're clearing our drains and allowing precipitation that falls to drain quickly and efficiently, we reduce the threat to public safety and public health for our residents. When we talk to the public, we talk about how there are short-term benefits, medium-term benefits, and long-term benefits to this. The short-term benefits are, you know, by reducing the amount of I&I, we can stabilize rates. Also, the medium-term benefits would be, you know, by fixing things early, rehabbing things before they break, we could actually end up saving money rather than waiting for it to fail. And then the long-term benefits, which is healthy waters for us and healthy waters for our kids, and hopefully a better economy, better local economy because of those healthy waters. So the way we do this, the way we get this message out to people is through some targeted mailings, door hangers, quarterly newsletters. I'm sure you guys have seen our twice annual letter that comes out. And we all focus on what people are getting for their dollar. Here's some examples of some of our outreach. The one on the left is an invitation that we send before a public meeting. That's me in the manhole. And then the other one is a slide that we do that would just be a cover of one of our presentations. Here's some of our door hangers that we use. Before a project, we'll go around and hang those on residents' doors. We have a calendar. We have the Clean Water bumper sticker, which is a hot commodity if anybody wants one. And you know, we're just trying to get the message out there. I don't know if you guys have seen our branding too. See the truck, the decal on the truck? All of our water, sewer, drain trucks now have that decal to denote them as clean water vehicles, and a newsletter as well. So in summary, so the city's sewer and drain infrastructure is aging, and it's vulnerable to coastal infiltration, but our work in stormwater and wastewater integrated planning are a natural fit, and I think is a benefit economically to the town, to the city here. And integrated programs, planning and outreach especially, will drive efficiencies and increase the public support for our programs.
Thank you very much, Deirdre. Yes, Councilor Finn.
Thank you, Ms. Hall, for your presentation, but again, one of the things I love this kind of stuff, quite honestly, with certain aspects, particularly in terms of the kind of the integrated concept that you're talking about. But take the example of your mentioning, and again, to put this in a context, you know, a lot of the folks listening, perhaps, they're not going to be too impressed with the Clean Water Matters campaign, quite honestly. That's not the thing that might be as important to them. I mean, there's people obviously who passionately care about the environment, don't get me wrong. But in terms of what you actually have done, is that what we're really talking about at the end of the day are savings, correct?
Correct.
And essentially, if you were to compare out, or to compare in some way, or to do the analysis related, you give an example around the C Street component,
Correct.
that to go back now, if you were to compare the cost of what that cost, and now with having to go back this second time and the cost associated with that, that's probably a significant difference, correct? In
Correct,
terms
because we'd
of-
have to mobilize again, we'd have to,
Right.
we'd have to, I don't know, whether you'd need, we had a bypass set up at the time. I'm not sure whether, I think the pipes are small enough where you may not need it if you could do it at low flow, but potentially a bypass. You have to do that again. You probably need to clean, then you gotta go back out and clean those sewers, so you get it, when you already had the company out there cleaning the main sewer. So it's really the cost associated with remobilization, demobilization, and also, you know, I think a lot of it is the effect on the residents. You know, like I said, that we already took away 6 weeks of their summer with a sewer project there, and a bypass. So on the C Street project, it would definitely be that, especially, and I think the C Street project is even more, I think highlights it even more, because when you look at the amount of pipe that we didn't look at, it's very small. Like, there's probably only, I don't know, 100, 200 feet in some of those catchments that could be the problem. And we could have caught it, well, if we had done that sampling beforehand, we would have done that while we were out there. We would have investigated, we would have found it, and then we would have lined it while we were already out there. So there is this additional cost associated with us having to go back out there on C Street. But like
No.
I said, hopefully that won't be in other areas.
But also now, what, in the context of this, in terms of, you've laid out essentially what the immediate plan is, but is there any attempt to look at it from a larger picture and perspective in terms of what the total cost could be if we went out over time in relation to what
Yeah,
needs to be achieved here?
I briefly, it's really, hold on, I did some math, I never can find it in the slides. On what it might cost. We have, what was it, 200, and hold on 1 second, I'm sorry.
Oh, where you gave the square footage, you mean, or the
Yeah,
pipe footage? Yeah,
I'm
but,
trying to figure it out, but
All right.
it would be between like $200 million and $350 million to line every pipe in the city.
right. So what's critical at this point, obviously, because we're not going to be able to come up with that amount, is to make certain choices and prioritize
Correct.
those things that have the greatest impact and the greatest effect.
That's correct. And that's what
Right.
we're trying to do here, because we could look in any pipe in this city, and it would need work. Every pipe in this, unless it was just put in. But really, because of the age of the pipe, every pipe has a crack. Every pipe has a fracture, you know, which is a very small nominal defect. But what we need to do is figure out how we're going to prioritize the repairs we're going to do today. Where are we getting the best bang for our buck? Where do we want to invest today so that we get the biggest buyback for our kids, for our futures? And that's what we're trying to do by looking at this in
Given,
an
it
integrated
just seems to
way.
me, given the age of so much of it, that I was wondering if, is there any attempt of necessarily, your focus may not be on the oldest necessarily as much as where you're going to get the largest amount for the money or resources available. Over time, do you think that that would be possible, particularly in a budget process, of laying that out in terms of what your need is or?
Yeah,
you know?
the hard part is that we don't know what our need is until we investigate it. So we have to first pay to investigate it before we know how much it's going to cost to repair it. So it's hard for me to put a dollar value on how much it's going to, when I come in front of, you know, when we come to you and we're talking about certain projects, I can put a dollar value on how much it's going to cost to investigate a particular area. But I'm not going to know how much it's going to cost to fix that area because I don't know what the defects are because I can't see them yet. So I got to wait to see them.
Well, you're clearly building a rationale for the importance of investigation, correct? So, I mean, that's fantastic. But over time, you're building up a body of knowledge and data that should be able to also move forward in terms of assessing
Correct.
what costs might be moving forward.
Correct, yeah. In our focus right now, you know, we're still taking a coastal focus. Again, it has our biggest bang for the buck for I&I, and also, you know, there's a pretty good chance that because we have those defects so close to the water, that we may have exfiltration from those pipes as well. So we're having, it still meets both those goals at the same time. So right now, we're still taking more of a coastal focus, but what's funny about Quincy is that catchment I showed you in Wollaston Beach that goes all the way up to Forbes Hill, that's coastal. All the way up on Forbes Hill is coastal because it discharges to the coast. So we have to start thinking about, you know, you have to, what's coastal and what has a coastal influence, you know, it's what's under the ground, not necessarily what's on the street. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I don't know if my colleagues have questions, but I appreciate your presentation this evening, and I certainly look forward to hearing from the water side of things at some future point, but thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor LaForest.
Thank you, Madam President. Us Neckarchuk speak stormwater management very well. It's one of my favorite topics, Deirdre, and it's been really great having you at DPW. Ward 1 really has seen a lot of the benefit of your work, and I'm very appreciative to you, to the commissioner. You know, I appreciate the Sexton Circle outfall picture that you saw, and, you know, anyone who's familiar with the coastline has seen a lot of outfalls in those conditions. Right off the top of my mind, and they've recently brought it to my attention in the meeting, the one right next to Quincy Yacht Club, in between there and the Maritime Center is one of the worst of the worst. So, you know, us having a strategy at being able to repair those, as we see the improvements that have been completed on Edgewater Drive with the seawall, with the outfalls there, you know, we have had some significant storm events, and Edgewater Drive has been dry as a bone because we have put the right infrastructure in place. So I look forward to working with your department as you do that in other areas along our coastline. I think I'm on the Mass Municipal Association's Energy Environment Committee, and we talk NIPD's permits, and the MS4 has been like the topic of the last couple of years. I just want to say the other thing I was noting with a lot of these improvements is the beach closures. We've had significant reductions in our beach closures because of this being measured, and it's really interesting that as you show the graphics, it kind of makes me think of like Finding Nemo. All drains lead to the ocean, right? That people don't think about when you're up in the inland areas of the community and you see the catch basins. People think it goes to the sewer, or they don't know, or they're not conscious of it, and that all of that is draining to our waterways. And I think that you've done a tremendous job as well with the public outreach, with the newsletters, and helping to explain. And, you know, I think for something you think would be so common sense, it really isn't. It really needs that outreach and explanation and education. I know you've marked the catch basins in a lot of the areas too, and I think you are actually going to be specifically targeting them, you know, drains to Wollaston Beach versus drain to the waterways, to really help connect that for people. So I appreciate that efforts. You had mentioned the C Street project coming online this year. I just wanted to know, one, if you could get me kind of a blurb for my bulletin article newsletter, and what your timeline would be for that project.
Sure. So I'm hoping, because the catchments are small, we may be able to do the IDDE in-house.
Okay.
Because there's just not a lot of manholes to go in.
Yep.
It'll be our first jump
Spring?
at that. It'll be our first
Okay.
jump at that in-house.
Yep.
But I have faith. We recently, because of the recent budget, we have a drain foreman funded, and that position is now filled. And I'm excited to move forward to try to do a little of this in-house now. I think those are good catchments to start in. So those can start whenever we have dry weather in order to do that. And the CCTV work in that area will be in the spring.
Right. And we've had a lot of the TV work done in Ward 1. I mean, I think
Yep.
for us, we're the highest risk area, the lowest lying areas. It's been the best return on the investment. I know we did a couple of years ago lining of the chimney hats cutting through, they called it the Camden Street line. And here you have these manholes filling up with tide water as 2 cycles a day. And so we had significant reduction, just in the I&I work with that project. So, no, I think this is a great investment that the municipality needs to make. The age of our infrastructure, we're an old city. You talk about the turn of the century, and that's when most of our infrastructure was built, and it was built in, particularly a lot of Ward 1 was cottages at that time. That's now a fully developed, residential areas, and as our city grows, we need to have the infrastructure to support the services that people take that people are, expecting with, obviously, with clean water and sewer services. So thank you very much, and I look forward to that information. Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
If, one question I do have, and is that particular PowerPoint, is there a way we could have access to that through your through the webpage or whatever?
Yeah, I can email it to you.
Okay, great, that'd be terrific, because again, that's a very, very informative piece. I appreciate it, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make mention of, and comment on your question about the overall cost, the overall view. And this is a draft report. We haven't had a chance to share it with anyone, but I don't think these findings are all that controversial. What this study has indicated is that if we maintain the same course that we're on, now we're on the water side for a bit, and I know that hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll come back and talk more about water. We would be repairing our water mains over a 60-year period. It would cost $325 million. If we up it a bit, unfortunately, that's roughly, and it's similar to the pavement management program.
Right.
If we increase our water main replacement spending, as you know, right now, we receive approximately $1 million from Mass Water, and that program is about to end in the next 3 or 4 years. Whether they renew that project or not, we don't know. We have $4 million left on that cycle. So right now, we're doing about 8,000 linear feet. If we up that to about 12,000 linear feet, we're on a 40-year replacement program. That would cost approximately $3 million a year, and it would cost us $226 million. So from 325 to 226, for 60 years to 40 years, and $100 million savings. A 20-year replacement, so we're doubling the amount of linear feet to 23,980, or roughly 24,000 linear feet. We would have to budget $6 million a year on water main replacement, and that would cost the ratepayers $161 million. So 161 to be the absolute baseline over 20 years, and then 226 that's probably the goal that we're looking to continue to explore, come up with various ways to accommodate that. You and I have talked about some private investments, things like that, Mr. Chairman. But the course we're on, that 60-year replacement over water mains, and I don't know if Paul has, did you bring that pipe, Paul? The tuberculation pipe?
Sorry. All right. Oh. Wow.
This is, hello. This is tuberculation. Tuberculation found in an unlined water main pipe. This is 4-inch in diameter. And this builds up over time, and what it does is it restricts flow and pressure, which could affect the pressure in our homes, fire flow pressure, et cetera. As this builds up, the pipes need to be replaced. This particular pipe was from Landers Road, and the age of the pipe was 1914. It's from Landers Road.
Well, can I, wait, yeah.
Wouldn't have taken us that long to replace it. But that's a graphic as to how important the infrastructure work is. And we have roughly anywhere from $160 million to $320 million worth of that kind of work, replacing that kind of pipe. So, but we'll get into that more. We'll get into that a bit more, Mr. Chairman, when you ask us to come back and talk about water. But for the first, but
Oh, wait a minute.
The further we kick this down the road, the more costly it becomes. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, we're good.
And so if we're talking about capital planning, this, and I mean, we need to be thinking about this infrastructure clearly as critical.
well, especially if Mass Water does not renew that program, then we don't have a funding source.
Right.
So we need to develop our own. Now, for the first time, I mean, since I've been here, and I don't know if I recall voting on water budgets, but As you recall, last year, with the approval of the mayor, with your support, we incorporated a small water main project in-house, not to match what we do with Mass Water. This past year, we did $2.7 million in water main replacement. So we've enhanced our normal linear footage. And we wanted to supplement that with an 1139 component, where the department would take on a project of replacing a water main to be supplemental to what Mass Water Resources were allowing us to do. And as we speak, the department is in the process of replacing the water main at the cemetery. And that's a wonderful project for them. And we've increased, when you get the budgets in the next couple of months, we've increased that a bit, so we're incrementally adding more, and we're hoping to do another, an actual road in Quincy next year with in-house talent. We don't think that we would need any significant engineering costs. We would pick a small street, perhaps a dead-end street, and try and do some of this linear footage with some of the older water mains with in-house
Great.
labor.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about that when we, again, try to bring you back soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for not bringing a section of sewer pipe for us to touch. So, thank you so much. Although Councilor Palmucci, I know, boom, boom, boom. Patty's Day is over. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak? All right, well, we will put that back into committee where it will stay. Thank you very much. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Number 3 on the agenda, 2016-075, ordinance amending the City of Quincy's zoning code for affordable housing by removing the provisions of section
Okay, motion to waive the reading. Councilor Palmucci.
Yes, thank you. I had asked that this be put on the agenda this evening, although it can't be, I later learned that it can't be acted on because it needs to be re-advertised. And also, I don't believe we've had a public hearing on this. So I'll request that we do both in advance of perhaps the next meeting or wherever it falls in the not-too-distant future, Madam President, whether it's the next meeting or perhaps a meeting after that, depending on what the agenda looks like. I'd like it to be on the agenda for both a public hearing as well as council action. This is an ordinance proposed by Councilor Finn and I that would amend the zoning code, particularly the section about affordable housing that exempts the downtown URDP urban development area. And just so, by way of a brief background on this particular issue, anyone who's been up here has listened to me ad nauseum about the need for workforce housing in the downtown area. If you're going to build it somewhere across the city, it makes the most sense to be in our urban hub with access to public transportation. And again, when we're talking about affordable housing, we're talking about workforce housing as well. This is housing for folks like teachers, firefighters, policemen. This is based on the income levels. This is housing for the middle class. And I think we're at a risk of not having enough of that in the city of Quincy, which to me is a problem. The zoning code, when we recodified the zoning code, which I think was in 2010, it was the first year that Councilor LaForest and I were on the council, and it was a very big undertaking by the Koch administration, which was well overdue, and they stepped up and they did a complete overhaul to update our zoning. One of the things that we debated at that time was whether or not affordable housing, a specific requirement, and the requirement's either that you build 10% affordable housing on any project over 10 units, I believe, or you pay into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund so that affordable housing can be replicated elsewhere in the city in a different project. We debated this in the zoning code, because in the entire city of Quincy, that rule applies. And we exempted this very small portion of the city downtown. And The reason, my recollection, my personal recollection, is that the reason we did that is because at the same time, we were in the process of negotiating an agreement, the LDA, and a development agreement with Streetworks. And Streetworks didn't want to be bound by a specific number of affordable housing. And in fact, in the negotiation with the Koch administration, they ended up doing, the end result was that they were going to do more affordable housing in terms of payment into the trust fund than I think what was typical at the time. Maybe that's changed since then, but at the time, it was going to be more of a payment than what was normally done. So the reason why we didn't include this in the zoning, or the reason why this exemption for the urban, for the downtown or the urban renewal area exists is because we wanted to give the administration the flexibility to negotiate with the master developer, Streetworks, on an overarching remedy to affordable housing in the downtown. Well, obviously, a lot's changed since that time. Now we're in a place where we're the master developer as the city. The city's the master developer. There have been 5 projects presented, 3 approved, 1 seeking approval, and a 5th yet to be approved, projects downtown. 5 projects downtown thus far, and not a single unit of affordable housing, and not a single dollar put into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to replicate that much-needed housing anywhere else in the city. To me, that is 1 project, it's 5 projects too many, but the last one, to me, is the last straw, so to speak. We've been told, well, this is, in the first 2 projects, east of Chestnut, west of Chestnut, we were told reasons why it didn't make sense to have affordable housing. We sat, we waited, we noted, this body collectively noted that we still maintain the policy goal that's in the URDP, that affordable housing should be made available downtown, and that workforce housing should be created downtown. We waited after Project 1, Project 2, we waited after Project 3, Project 4 went to pass, and now we're presented with Project 5 that's moving forward. Enough is enough in terms of ignoring affordable housing and workforce housing downtown, and that's what this ordinance seeks to change, just to create a level playing field for the downtown area, the same as it is on the streets of South and West Quincy and Ward 2 and Ward 1 and wherever it is, you have to follow this rule. We shouldn't be exempting the downtown. So I look forward to hearing from members of the public. I especially hope that developers come and speak, maybe folks who either are currently developing downtown or are potentially in the future looking to develop downtown. I would like to hear the reasons, perhaps, why we shouldn't do this. Just as much as I hold the belief that we should, I think a good public hearing is when both sides weigh in and you get to learn something about perhaps the view that you don't yourself hold, and you're able to understand a little bit some of the other arguments. So I look forward to a public hearing on this. I look forward to a debate on this. I think it's an important issue. You just look to the newspaper any day of the week and you see something in there that speaks to the loss of the middle class, whether it's affordability of housing, whether it's wages not keeping pace with inflation, whether it's jobs in the economy. There's always something in the newspaper every single day about quite frankly, the extinction of the middle class. And I think we as elected officials have to do our part to make sure that our city maintains what we know it to be in terms of its neighborhood character, the character of our city. We've always been a blue-collar city with our strength in our neighborhoods. There is I can think of no argument that makes any sense whatsoever that it makes sense to force affordable housing in our residential neighborhoods, but not in our urban center close to mass transit. So, talked way longer than I had hoped to or expected to, but I don't know if my co-sponsor, Councilor Finn, would like to speak on this, but if we could, Madam President, as I had asked, schedule a public hearing on this when the agenda makes sense and advertise it publicly. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Palmucci. Councilor Finn.
Thank you, Madam President, and I think it was Churchill who had that comment of saying how he was picking up the flag that had fallen upon the field of battle. And I commend my colleague for picking this up once again, because we actually tried in another session to convince our colleagues the critical importance of this. And I think a point that really needs to be stressed is, this is not so much as an amendment as it is a restoration. It's a restoration to going back to the way it was. And I agree with my colleague's characterization of what happened and why it happened, because we did have a master developer, and that master developer entered into a contract that guaranteed certain amount of resources that would be dedicated to affordable housing. The only thing where I would disagree slightly, and I know he's used this characterization in the past, and I just want to make a little distinction. The city is not a master developer. Being a master developer assumes that you actually have control or interest in those properties and that you are developing those together in some way. A better characterization for the city would be master planner in relation to this. But what makes the restoration of this so critical and so important is it excludes any affordable housing within a given development area. That would even include those parcels who decide to do something with their properties completely and totally separate from anything around a certificate of consistency or choose to do it outside the development. They're just as free as the person who's cooperating with the city in some way to not contribute whatsoever to the whole affordable housing issue. I think the basic fundamental fairness point that Councilor Palmucci makes about, some neighborhoods having it and others isn't is a serious one. But I think another thing that we cannot forget is that the state's affordable housing statute, 40B, is a very delicate balance. And if we're talking about significant numbers of new residential rentals or properties that exist within the city of Quincy, that balance is affected in such a way that frees up developers to come in and do 40B projects, which gives them incredible control, that has incredible impact on our neighborhoods and our communities. So that balance with 40B is absolutely critical and important. I would really look forward to finally having a kind of a public hearing related to this as well. And, to just, again, convey the sense that, again, that Councilor Palmucci, we are not talking about housing projects. We're not talking about the disabled poor. It's important. I dedicate my life to that housing. We're talking about workforce housing. We're talking about school teachers. We're talking about starting out police officers. We're talking about anyone who could potentially qualify for this level of housing. So I really look forward, and I'm hoping you will all remain open to that discussion and hear about the need to return. It's an interesting thing, as I see Mr. Fatsis, is the Affordable Housing Trust under planning and community development now has really added a level of objectivity in terms of deciding what's required to meet the provisions of our local ordinance. And yet there's always been a level of flexibility that understands that some of these things need to be negotiated and worked through the Affordable Housing Trust. We have no reason to fear restoring that. And again, I look forward to the discussion. And I thank Councilor Palmucci again for bringing it back up again.
Thank you, Councilor Finn. So we will put this at the end of this meeting this evening when we schedule our committee hearings. We'll schedule a public hearing in the next meeting. Thank you. Next. Sorry. Okay. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Number 4 on the agenda, 2017-039, ordinance for a smoke-free Adams Green for Councilor Palmucci.
All right, motion with the reading. Councilor Palmucci on the motion.
Smoking's bad. Can we refer this to committee? Right?
Certainly.
Yes. All right, we'll
Public
refer it to
safety.
the ordinance,
Public-
joint referrals to ordinance and public safety. Great. Health.
Can Do we have to advertise that, right? It's an ordinance, we have to advertise it? On a slow night, I'll pull that out of committee and just vote on it. I don't anticipate having any, do we need to do a public hearing on it at some point? Yeah, I can't imagine anyone's going to weigh in publicly, one way or the other.
He's underestimating
some of
those anti-smoke activists.
Right, but we'd certainly afford people the opportunity if they'd like to be heard on whether or not
Okay.
smoking should be allowed on Adams Green. But, so maybe we can put that on another night when we have other public hearings, do like the 5-minute kind of stagger. And if we could advertise it, I'll
On the next-
pull it out
yep.
at some other point. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Counselor Palmucci. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Number 5, 2017-040, resolve on substance abuse hearings.
Okay, Counselor DeBona.
Thank you, Madam President. Along with Mr. Counselor Palmucci across the way, wants to co-sponsor this with me as well. Likes to get his hand in a lot of different things. This resolution actually is substance abuse hearings, specialize in the opioid epidemic. I'm just going to go over some quick points here, just a little bit about it. During my days as a school committee member, I was involved with the Quincy Public Schools in educating our youth with youth seminars at both Quincy and North Quincy High Schools. During these seminars, we had public speaking engagements for former Boston Celtics player Chris Herron, other activists and parents that have lost children to this epidemic. I'd like to bring this resolution to the City Council to help combat this substance abuse opioid epidemic. We need a full-scale, open communication of information from all departments and agencies in this City Council chamber, some public input, public hearings, community activists involved. This epidemic now claims more lives than car accidents nationwide, with more than 50,000 deaths reported throughout the country in 2015 for numbers. The City Council, the City of Quincy created the Mayor's Substance Abuse Task Force in 2008 to address this issue. The work of the task force has been viewed as a national model, including the recommendation that the Quincy Police Department become the first department in the nation to be fully equipped with the anti-overdose medication Narcan. A number of other new prevention, treatment, and enforcement measures have been implemented with the assistance of this task force. Despite this work, substance abuse continues to affect families throughout our city. Therefore, let it be resolved, the City Council hold a series of hearings with members of the Substance Abuse Task Force, the Quincy Police Department, the Quincy Fire Department, Brewster Ambulance on various issues related to the substance abuse to help educate the public, discuss further ideas to stem this epidemic, and recommend additional resources as necessary to end this plague on our community. I would like to, if I could, Madam President, put this in a form of a motion for this resolution to be referred to the Education Committee for future hearings.
Okay, so we will, sorry. All right, so we will put it in the Education Committee? Very well. Is there, all those in favor, is there a second?
Yeah, it's- I'm
Yep,
happy to
Counselor Finn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great. So we'll go there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item on the agenda is number 6, 2017-041, a gift for,
Waive the reading,
yes.
Madam Clerk, and just acknowledge the gift in a note of gratitude. Would move approval.
All right, motion to approve by Counselor Kroll, seconded by Counselor DeBona on the motion, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Kane. Yes. Counselor Crowe.
Yes.
Counselor DeBona.
Yes.
Counselor Finn.
Yes.
Counselor Harris. Counselor LaForest. Yes. Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Palmucci. Yes. President Hughes.
Yes,
9 members.
thank you.
That
All right, and that concludes our listed agenda for this evening. Next, we have the approval of previous meeting minutes. Before you is the March 6th, 2017 minutes. Is there a motion to approve by Counselor LaForest, seconded by Counselor Liang? All those in favor? Aye, great, the motion passes. The meeting minutes are approved. Communications and reports from the mayor, city officers, other city boards. Madam Clerk.
I do have some new traffic requests, which will be referred to ordinance committee for advertising.
All right.
Ward 2, Councilor Kroll, add handicap parking to 77 Raycroft Street. Ward 4, Councilor Palmucci, add handicap parking at 56 Hughes Street. Ward 5, Councilor Hughes, remove handicap parking at 129 Beach Street. Ward 6, Councilor Harris, add no parking on both sides of Bay State Road, Quincy Shore Drive, to 100 feet north of Quincy Shore Drive. Remove handicap parking at 33 Cummins Ave. Add no parking on the east side of Vane Street from Billings Road to 12 Vane Street. And add 10-minute parking on the east end of Hodges Court. Those will all be referred to ordinance committee for advertising.
All right, for ordinance and advertise. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Unfinished business from the preceding meeting. Reports of committees. Councilor Crowell.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I have pending in Finance Committee, Council Order 2016-268, which is an appropriation of $200,000 to Sewer Department contractual from Sewer and Drain Rehabilitation Fund. I believe the Commissioner is going to speak on that.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, through you to Chairman of the Finance Committee, Council Crowell. Good evening.
Good evening. So I don't know if you kind of want to bring the group.
This is
through.
a continuation of some of the infrastructure work in the Atlantic, North Quincy area, abutting Teal Field. The contractor in the performance of his duties in that project noticed that this section of Newbury Ave, actually some of the sewer lines were sagging to the point that sewage was being asked to flow in a, not a downward direction. So the contractor is estimating that the cost before you would be the cost to replace this section of sewer line.
I didn't even know it was coming up the committee.
All right, thank you. Councilor Crowell, anything further?
Any questions from the council? Seems pretty straightforward.
No? Is there a motion to?
I move approval.
All right, motion to approve by Councilor Kroll, seconded by Councilor Harris. Okay. Oh, you're good. Okay, great. Madam Clerk?
Councilor Kane.
Yes.
Councilor Kroll.
Yes.
Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Finn.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor LaForest.
Yes.
Councilor Liang.
Yes.
Councilor Palmucci.
Yes.
President Hughes.
Yes,
9 members.
thank you.
If, also pending in committee, Madam
Yes. President,
President, is Council Order 2016-269, which is an appropriation of $180,000 to the Water Department contractual from Water Enterprise Fund, 2016 retained earnings. Commissioner Raimondi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Similar to the other item, this is an extension of the work by WES Construction Corp. They replaced the water main partially down Hunt Street. The balance of the work from Hunt to East Quantum at the time was deemed to be too complicated and too expensive, but I believe that water main is about $1893. So at the department's request and to the mayor's, with the mayor's support, we prevailed on the mayor and the contractor to extend that water main replacement from that portion of Hunt through to the East Quantum Street intersection. So that's the cost of the construction of that.
All right, motion to approve? Motion to approve by Councilor Harris, seconded by Councilor DeBona. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll.
Councilor Kane.
Yes.
Councilor Kroll.
Yes.
Councilor DeBona.
Yes.
Councilor Finn.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor LaForest.
Yes.
Councilor Liang. Yes. Councilor Palmucci. President Hughes.
Yes,
9 members.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your help tonight. All right. Ordinance Committee, Councilor LaForest.
Thank you. This evening, we just have one matter in one traffic in Ward 6, Council Order 2017-034. This is to remove the no parking sign at 50 Standish Road. I move positive recommendation.
Positive recommendation from Counselor LaForce, seconded by Counselor Harris. On the motion, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Kane. Counselor Crowe. Counselor DeBona. Yes. Counselor Finn.
Yes.
Counselor Harris. Yes. Counselor LaForest.
Yes.
Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Palmucci. Yes. President Hughes.
Yes.
8 members.
Great, thank you. Yes, Counselor.
Oh, I thought you were going to scheduling.
Oh, nope, we're getting there, we're getting there. Presentation of petitions, memorials, or remonstrance. Yes, Counselor Finn.
Through you, Madam President, to Mr. Walker, and I don't expect anything tonight, and I know we have had some conversations, but regarding 2016-201, which you can find in the public safety regarding to the study, I request, I have yet to hear anything from the fire chief per se, so I would appreciate getting something on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Finn. Anyone, presentation of petitions, memorials, and remonstrance. Counselor Crowe.
Thank you very much, Madam President. It's with deep sadness that in our report over the last week or so, the passing of Marie Murphy. Marie is a lifetime Quincy resident, raised 3 daughters who, 2 of 3, I believe, still live in the city. One of which is a friend to many of us. She's married to a friend of many of ours, Michael Norton. So had the opportunity to, get to the service over this past weekend, and just, wanted to make a public acknowledgement to continue to keep the Murphy family in our prayers. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor Crowe. Anyone else? Yeah. Oh, no. We're getting there, though, but we're getting there. Counselor Forrest really wants to schedule this meeting. No, I know what you mean. Counselor DeBona.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say just a thank you to the inspectional people over at 1000 Southern Artery. Today was the first day the kitchen reopened after 8 months of being down. Along with Councilor Crowell and myself, we pushed a little bit of buttons and we got that thing open. But I was over there yesterday for the pancake breakfast sponsored by the Rotary Club, and there was a lot of smiles in that room, I can tell you, because they were just looking forward to having that kitchen open. So I just want to say thank you to the property management company over there and the inspectional guys over there, because this was a very much needed kitchen that needed to be open. Thank you.
Thank you. This evening, I would like to dedicate this meeting and ask all of you to keep the Cahill family in your prayers. Former counselor and, of course, State Treasurer Tim Cahill's mother, Teresa, passed away at the age of 85 this past Wednesday, surrounded by her family. Teresa was the matriarch of her family. She lived in Quincy for 55 years, and she raised, let's look at this. How many children?
8 anyway.
Say this again.
8 anyway.
Nine children, it says here, and her 11 grandchildren and a great-granddaughter. So our thoughts and prayers are certainly with former State Treasurer and Quincy City Councilor Tim Cahill and his wife Tina and their family. Anyone else? Okay. Motions, orders, and resolutions. Counselor Palmucci.
Thank you, President. I want to make a resolution, perhaps verbally. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Couldn't introduce this in advance of the agenda being scheduled because the information wasn't known, but the CDBG program in the city of Quincy that's funded by the federal government, and in the recent budget proposed by the president, calls for cutting that funding. It's a program that's existed since 1974, aiding, you name the charity or the organization in Quincy that does something public good and they're getting some dollars from CDBG. That entire program, it's my understanding, is proposed to be cut in the president's budget before Congress. What I'd like to do, I mean, I just think in Ward 4, we're talking the food pantry, this is the housing rehab money, flood proofing, the first-time home buyer program, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Councilor DeBona had a resolution about that and making it more available to veterans. That money's gone. There's no, forget about veterans or non-veterans, there's no money coming out of it for anybody. That program's dead, as would be scores of other programs. Again, if QCAP and the clients that they serve in so many different aspects of Quincy in different ways, this would be a huge loss to the city of Quincy. We're talking several $1 million in loss that we would be looking at having to come up with. So by way of this being a verbal remonstrance, what I'd like to do is simply ask that at some near future meeting, we have the planning director give us an update on CDBG, whether it be the funding relative to the federal government or how they're planning moving forward for the CDBG funding, because everything goes through the planning department, that federal funding. I'd just like an update from the planning director at a future meeting as to the impacts of a defunding of CDBG would have in the city of Quincy.
All right, is that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, you sure?
Okay, motion by Counselor Palmucci, seconded by Counselor LaForest. On the motion, all those, I think we can do it. Yes, Counselor Finn.
Thank you. Again, I think this is an important resolution that Councilor Palmucci is putting forward. I think that as part of that report, it would be interesting to get an update as it relates, again, to our obligation related to the shipyard, because I think we're just coming back at that point. And of course, CDBG is based on formula, which would mean we'd be getting additional resources if the program were even level funded at this point. So I would look forward to such a report. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor Finn. Is there, so there's motion made and seconded, Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Counselor Kane. Yes. Counselor Crowe. Yes. Counselor DeBona. Yes. Counselor Finn.
Yes.
Counselor Harris. Yes. Counselor LaForest. Yes. Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Palmucci. Yes. President Hughes.
Yes.
9 members.
Okay. Now, Counselor LaForest, we can schedule.
I had talked with our team preparing the LDA. We had tentatively slated for Monday, April 3rd, and I was looking to move that meeting to Wednesday, April 5th. So the LDA, as well as if we could schedule the public hearing for 6:30 on Wednesday, April 5th. So start with the public hearing, followed up with a continued ordinance committee meeting.
Okay.
Could you repeat the date again?
Yep, so we're going to
April
go, move
5.
it from the April 3rd to host the meeting on April 5th, the Wednesday. I think we've got a pretty
6:30?
stacked council agenda on the 3rd. And I'm going to need additional time with the LDA, so we're going to go to the 5th. The ordinance committee will meet relative to the pending
So we're saying
LDA,
6:30?
and a public hearing will be held first at 6:30.
Okay.
So I think we're going to have financial matters on the 3rd.
Not particularly. We have one.
Okay.
Yeah.
The request I had was an additional date to the 5th. We could do the 4th. Is the 4th? Is the 4th better than the 5th? Oh, I don't have that on my calendar yet. How about the 5th? The 5th?
I would like to be here for that, and I can't be here.
Gone to. Okay, we'll hold to the 3rd. We were trying to do it on an off night. Do we want to do 6? 6 is another meeting? Which one?
No, 6 PM, she's saying, 6 PM.
No, so put 6 PM on the 3rd? 6 April 3rd,
April 3rd, 6 PM.
6 PM, public hearing,
Yeah,
ordinance.
okay.
Okay.
Six o'clock.
Okay. Anyone else scheduling public? Yes, Counselor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President. So just in kind of like a sequence check, I want to put it out to the body. So as you know, last year, we had a lot of appropriations, just a lot of stuff going on during the actual budget season. And what I'm trying to do is avoid that as much as possible. So my understanding, Chris Walker, please jump in if I'm miscommunicating this, but April 3rd is going to be a presentation on the $25 million park bond and the CIP, right?
It'll be two things, yes, sir.
Okay, so my thought is on April 10th, which I know it's an off-council meeting night, we could look at having a finance committee meeting to start to begin to work through whatever's presented on April 3rd. And I know we also have pending in committee, although there was some discussion, the streetlights. So we could look at April 10th, and then we have a city council meeting that following Monday, which is,
Tuesday.
I'm sorry?
I think it's Tuesday.
Does it fall on a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay, so that following Tuesday, and then basically we could come back that following Monday. So we'll have two opportunities to engage in whatever's going to be presented on the 3rd before we get into budget season. Because again, just time check, the budget will be presented that first city council meeting in May. So I just want to give us enough, freedom and flexibility. I know we all, have daytime jobs and families, so the work-life balance. Does that sound amenable to everyone? I don't know if I'm asking is more as suggesting, but that's sort of my thought process here. Well, 6 is too early, it seems, right? So 6:30 gives everyone an opportunity to kind of transition from day to hopefully get a bite to eat to come here, so we can shoot for 6:30. That'll be on the 10th. And then your regular city council meeting is what, Madam Clerk, the 18th? So then we'll be back here on the 24th for further deliberation around what'll be presented on April 3rd. So the capital improvement plan and the park bond. And then if we need to go over into May, so be it, but, we'll have plenty of time.
Finance again at 6:30 on the 24th.
Yes, please.
In Councilor Palmucci, affordable housing on the 18th.
What's that?
On the 18th, the public hearing. Give us enough time to advertise
I'm not going to be able to.
on Tuesday, the 18th.
Is there another date on the, I don't want to go pull the audience. We're going to get this shit moving. Is it?
No, I won't be.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, it's
No.
that's the Monday
is it-
holiday, it's Patriots Day.
You okay with that, or are you like? It's still.
If she can't be there,
take my
though,
microphone
there's
off,
something
please?
wrong. No, the ordinance committee, well, he's not setting an ordinance committee meeting, he's setting a public hearing. He's just setting a public hearing.
We can't, you can.
Ugh. Oh, all right, I'm like, I know you are. All right, great.
Can't be, I can be there. Okay, I can do that.
Anything left? No. All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Yes, Council Palmucci, all those in favor? Aye, woo-hoo.